The stars looked the same as always from listening post Epsilon. Olivia Ward stared at them through the thick glass of the observation deck. She had worked at this remote station for 5 years now, and each day felt much like the last. Humanity had spread through the solar system, building homes on the Moon and Mars, and setting up research stations near Jupiter and Saturn. But they had never found anyone else out there in the darkness, until today. Olivia's coffee mug slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor when the alert first sounded. The computer had detected something unusual, a pattern repeating over and over that wasn't random space noise. It wasn't human either. "Computer, run pattern recognition again," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The computer confirmed what she already knew. This was no malfunction or cosmic accident. This was a message. Within an hour, Olivia had called in the night shift early and sent the signal to Earth Command. Scientists around the solar system dropped whatever they were doing and focused on the mysterious transmission. Some worked on translating it while others tried to figure out where it came from. Olivia barely slept for the next 3 days. She lived on coffee and energy bars, checking each new report as it came in. Bit by bit, the pieces came together. "It's a distress call," said Frank Miller, the lead linguist from Earth. His tired face filled the video screen in the command center. "We're still working on the details, but they call themselves the Novanians. They're running from something, or were. Now they're just trying to survive." More information trickled in over the next few hours. The Novanians traveled in 3 massive ships, each one nearly a mile long. They had been journeying through space for over 300 years after their home planet became uninhabitable. Now their ships were failing after being hit by a powerful radiation storm. Life support systems were breaking down. Food production was failing. Without help, all 60,000 survivors would die within months. Olivia read the reports with growing concern. The alien fleet was headed toward our solar system, not as invaders but as desperate refugees seeking aid. "Have they said what they want from us exactly?" she asked during the next briefing. "They need engineering help, medical assistance, and possibly evacuation," replied Dr. Linda Boyd, who had been working non-stop on translating the technical aspects of the message. "Their technology is advanced in some ways, different in others. They're offering to share knowledge in exchange for help." Back on Earth, the highest levels of government debated what to do. Some feared a trap or trick. Others worried about the resources it would take to help so many aliens. A few suggested turning them away to protect humanity's interests. Admiral William Kemp stood before the United Earth Council in Geneva. Gray-haired and serious, he had seen humanity through its first steps into the solar system. Now he faced its biggest challenge. "We have a choice to make," he told the assembled leaders. "We can turn our backs on these people and let them die, or we can attempt the greatest rescue mission in human history." The debate lasted for days. Olivia watched the news feeds anxiously from her post at Epsilon. Public opinion was divided. Some people protested against helping aliens who might bring disease or danger. Others organized to collect supplies and volunteer their services. In the end, the vote was close but clear. Humanity would answer the call. 12 ships were immediately prepared from Earth's defense fleet. 5 more civilian vessels were converted for the mission. Thousands of people volunteered to join the rescue team, far more than could be accepted. Captain Alan Rodriguez was chosen to lead the mission. A veteran of the Mars trade routes, he had a reputation for solving impossible problems. He stood in the loading bay of his ship, the UES Endeavour, watching as supplies were loaded aboard. "You really think we can pull this off?" asked his first officer, Jack Nelson. Alan looked at the activity around them. Engineers were modifying engines for long-range travel. Doctors were packing medical supplies for unknown alien biology. Scientists were studying the limited information on Novanian technology. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know we have to try." Meanwhile, Dr. Nancy Carter worked frantically in her lab at Luna Medical Center. As the mission's chief xenobiologist, she had the impossible job of figuring out how to treat aliens no human had ever seen. The Novanians had included basic biological information in their messages, but it wasn't nearly enough. Their cellular structure has similarities to ours, she explained to her team. But their biochemistry is completely different. We'll have to develop treatments as we go. Across the solar system, preparations continued day and night. Chief Engineer Peter Russell led teams that built special adapters based on the technical data sent by the Novanians. They hoped these would allow human technology to connect with alien systems. It's like trying to build a bridge while only seeing one side of the river, Peter said as another test failed. But we'll figure it out, we have to. As the launch date approached, Captain Rodriguez addressed his crew and the billions watching across the solar system. What we're attempting has never been done before, he said. We don't know if our technology will be compatible with theirs. We don't know if we can survive the same radiation that damaged their ships. We don't even know if they'll welcome us when we arrive. He paused, looking at the determined faces around him. But we do know this. 60,000 lives are counting on us. If we fail trying. That's what humans do. 1 month after receiving the first signal, the rescue fleet departed from Earth orbit. Their journey would take them beyond the safety of established routes to meet the alien ships approaching from deep space. Olivia watched them go from her post at Epsilon. She had requested to join the mission, but was ordered to remain at her post to maintain communications. As the ships disappeared into the darkness, she sent one final message to Captain Rodriguez. Good luck out there. All of humanity is with you. The greatest rescue mission in human history had begun. No one knew how it would end. Space was colder than Alan Rodriguez had expected. He had traveled within the solar system many times, but never this far out. The 17 ships of the rescue fleet moved steadily through the darkness, pushing past Neptune's orbit into the unknown. Status report, Alan said, walking onto the bridge of the Endeavour after 4 hours of much-needed sleep. All ships maintaining formation, Captain, replied Jack Nelson. Engineering reports the experimental engines are holding stable. We're on schedule to reach the rendezvous point in 6 days. Alan nodded and looked at the main screen. The Novanian ships were not yet visible, but their position was marked by 3 blue dots slowly moving toward the human fleet. Each day the communication between the two groups improved as the human linguists and alien translators worked together remotely. Latest update from the Novanians, said Communications Officer Lisa Green. Their primary life support system on the largest vessel is failing faster than expected. They've moved many of their people into the other 2 ships, but conditions are becoming desperate. Alan frowned. Tell Dr. Carter. She needs to know what she's walking into. In the medical bay, Nancy Carter and her team were practicing with the tools they had developed based on Novanian biology. The aliens had sent detailed scans of their bodies over the past few weeks. They were tall and thin with 4 arms and blue-purple skin that seemed to shimmer. Their blood was copper-based rather than iron-based like humans, and they breathed a mix of gases different from Earth's atmosphere. Let's try again, Nancy said, as the practice dummy in front of them failed to respond to their treatment. If we can't stabilize their respiratory systems, we'll lose half of them before we can get them back to Earth. Across the ship, Peter Russell's engineering teams worked day and night building interface devices that might connect with Novanian technology. They had assembled and disassembled the prototypes dozens of times, testing every possible configuration. The main problem is their power systems, Peter explained to Alan during the daily briefing. They use some kind of crystalline energy storage we've never seen before. Our tools might not even work on their equipment. Do what you can, Alan replied. We'll figure out the rest when we get there. The mood throughout the fleet was a mix of excitement and fear. No human had ever met an alien before. No rescue mission had ever traveled this far from Earth. At night, many crew members looked out their viewports at the endless stars and wondered what they would find. On the medical ship Mercy, Dr. Ben Howard prepared his trauma teams for possible radiation sickness. Based on what the Novanians have told us, the radiation that damaged their ships may still be present in their bodies, he told his staff. We need to be ready to treat both human and alien patients. The Novanians sent more information each day, details about their ships, their people, their culture. They had fled their dying world over 3 centuries ago, carrying the last seeds of their civilization in 3 massive vessels. They had encountered other species during their journey, but never established permanent contact. Now, with their ships failing, they had no choice but to reach out to the strange beings whose radio signals they had detected. 5 days into the journey, Sensor Officer Ryan Price called Alan to the bridge in the middle of the night cycle. "Captain, I'm picking up debris ahead of us," he said, pointing to his screen. "Based on the composition, it matches what we know about Novanian technology." Alan studied the readings. "Adjust course to investigate, but keep a safe distance. Alert the fleet." The debris field was smaller than expected, pieces of metal and crystal floating silently in space. Analysis confirmed it had come from the Novanian ships, possibly jettisoned to reduce weight or from some kind of structural failure. "They're worse off than they told us," Alan said quietly to Jack. "They've been shedding parts to keep going." The next day, long-range sensors finally detected the alien fleet visually. 3 enormous cylinder-shaped vessels, each marked with glowing blue lines along their hulls. Even from a distance, the damage was obvious. Dark patches scarred their surfaces, and one ship was clearly listing to one side, its propulsion systems failing. "Open a direct channel," Alan ordered. "Let them know we're close." For the first time, the humans saw a Novanian. The alien that appeared on screen was tall and slender with 4 arms and iridescent blue-purple skin. Its large eyes blinked slowly as it looked at the human captain. "Greetings from the people of Earth," Alan said carefully, following the protocol established by the diplomats. "I am Captain Alan Rodriguez of the United Earth Space Command. We have come to render assistance." The alien touched its chest with 3 fingers, in what the linguists had said was a sign of respect. "I am First Speaker Valoran of the Eternal Dawn," the alien replied, its words translated by the computer. "Your arrival brings hope to our people. We feared you might not come." "We keep our promises," Alan said simply. "We'll begin docking procedures with your vessels in 6 hours. Please, prepare your people." As the human fleet approached the massive Novanian ships, the true scale of the aliens' plight became clear. Scans showed failing systems throughout all 3 vessels. The radiation damage had spread further than expected, and many sections were without power or life support. On the Endeavor, the rescue teams made final preparations. Engineers checked their equipment one last time. Medical personnel reviewed the Novanian physiology files again. Security teams established protocols for first contact. "This will be the most important day in human history," Jack said as he stood beside Alan on the bridge. "Meeting another intelligent species, helping them survive." Alan nodded. "Or the biggest disaster if we get this wrong. Either way, there's no turning back now." As the human ships moved into position alongside the alien vessels, Susan Wright checked her environmental suit one last time. As leader of the first contact team, she would be the first human to set foot on a Novanian ship. "Ready?" asked her teammate Eric Jones. Susan took a deep breath and nodded. "As ready as anyone can be to meet aliens." The docking tube extended from the Endeavor toward the largest Novanian ship. Metal touched metal with a soft clang that echoed through both vessels. Humanity's first rescue mission beyond Neptune had reached its destination. Now the real work would begin. Susan Wright stepped through the airlock and became the first human to board an alien vessel. Her heart beat fast inside her environmental suit as she moved forward with slow, careful steps. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal, making her movements feel bouncy and strange. "I'm inside," she reported back to the Endeavor. "The docking area appears secure. Air readings match what they sent us, but I'm keeping my suit sealed for now." The interior of the Novanian ship was both familiar and alien. The corridors were wider and taller than on human vessels, with soft blue lighting running along the ceiling. Strange symbols covered the walls, some flashing with urgent warnings that Susan's translator couldn't yet decipher. 4 Novanians waited at the end of the corridor. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, their slender bodies swaying slightly as if moved by an invisible breeze. Their skin shimmered with colors ranging from deep purple to pale blue. Each had 4 long arms that moved with fluid grace. Their large eyes watched the humans with what Susan hoped was curiosity rather than fear. Greetings, said the tallest Novanian, pressing 3 fingers to its chest. I am first speaker Valoran. Welcome aboard the Eternal Dawn. Susan returned, the gesture. Lieutenant Susan Wright of Earth, thank you for allowing us to help. More humans came through the airlock behind her. Engineers, doctors, and security personnel. They spread out carefully, following the plan they had practiced for weeks. The engineering teams headed toward the critical systems that needed immediate repair. The medical teams set up a triage center to assess the Novanians who were ill from radiation exposure. Peter Russell led his engineers to the main power core. What they found shocked them. The once advanced system was barely functioning, held together with makeshift repairs and jury-rigged parts. They've been keeping this running with the equivalent of duct tape and prayers, Peter told Captain Rodriguez, over the comm. It's amazing they've survived this long. The Novanians showed them the damage caused by the radiation storm they had encountered 8 months earlier. Critical systems throughout all 3 ships had been affected. Power generation was down to 30%. Food production had nearly stopped. Life support was failing in multiple sections. Many believed we should die with dignity, rather than ask strangers for help, Valoran explained as he led Susan through the ship. But the council decided our children deserved a chance to live. Susan saw those children in the residential sections, small Novanians with brighter skin colors who watched the humans with wide, curious eyes. They had been born on these ships, knowing only the endless journey through space. In the medical bay, Dr. Nancy Carter worked carefully with her Novanian counterparts. The aliens had their own medical technology, but much of it had been damaged. Nancy's team set up human equipment modified to work with Novanian biology. Their radiation sickness presents differently than in humans, Nancy reported. But the underlying cellular damage is similar enough that our treatments seem to be working. Not everything went smoothly. Human tools sometimes couldn't interface with Novanian technology. Communication remained difficult despite the translators. Cultural misunderstandings created moments of tension. During one repair operation, engineer Sam Foster accidentally triggered an alarm when he connected the wrong power coupling. A section of the ship went dark, and panic spread among the Novanians there. It took hours to restore power and rebuild trust. Captain Rodriguez spent most of his time coordinating the rescue efforts from the Endeavor. Each day brought new challenges and unexpected problems. The human crews worked in shifts around the clock, sleeping in makeshift quarters on the Novanian vessels or returning briefly to their own ships. 7 days into the rescue operation, a critical failure occurred on the smallest Novanian vessel, the Starseeker. Alarms blared throughout. The ship as its reactor began an unstable cascade. The containment field is failing, reported the Novanian engineer to Peter Russell. We have perhaps 20 minutes before it goes critical. We can't stop it, Peter told Captain Rodriguez after checking the systems. The damage is too severe. Rodriguez made the call immediately. Evacuate the Starseeker, get everyone off now. What followed was chaos and heroism intertwined. Human and Novanian crews worked side by side to evacuate over 8,000 refugees from the doomed ship. They used every available shuttle, escape pod, and transport tube. Susan Wright found herself leading a group of Novanian children through a damaged corridor when part of the ceiling collapsed. She shielded them with her own body, suffering a deep cut on her arm but getting all of them safely to the evacuation point. In the final minutes, Peter Russell and a Novanian engineer named Ilara remained aboard to keep the reactor stable long enough for the last evacuees to escape. They ran for the final shuttle with just minutes to spare, the deck plates shaking beneath their feet. The Starseeker exploded in a brilliant flash of light and energy just after their shuttle cleared the minimum safe distance. The shockwave rocked all the nearby vessels, but they had moved far enough away to avoid serious damage. When the count was complete, they had lost 217 Novanians, engineers who had stayed too long trying to save their ship, the elderly who couldn't be moved quickly enough, a few who had been trapped in collapsed sections. It was a terrible loss, but far less than it might have been without the human rescue teams. That night, Susan sat in a quiet corner of the Endeavor's observation deck, her arm bandaged, watching the distant stars. Captain Rodriguez found her there and sat beside her in silence for a long moment. "You did good work today," he said finally. "You saved a lot of lives." "We lost 217, Susan replied quietly. Rodriguez nodded. "Yes, and we saved over 8,000. Tomorrow we'll try to save the rest." With the Starseeker gone, the remaining Novanian vessels were dangerously overcrowded. The environmental systems couldn't support so many people for long, and the ships themselves were still deteriorating despite the repairs. After consulting with his officers and the Novanian leaders, Rodriguez made another difficult decision. They would need to tow the alien ships back toward Earth using modified, gravitational harnesses. It would be slow and dangerous, straining the resources of both fleets. But the Novanians couldn't survive much longer in deep space. As the human engineers prepared for this unprecedented operation, Valoran addressed the combined crews. "In our history, we have a concept called soul debt, when one being's actions save another's essence from extinction. Today, all Novanians have incurred a soul debt to humanity that can never be repaid. We will carry this bond into whatever future you have granted us." The long journey home was about to begin. The journey back to Earth began slowly. The human ships attached special gravity tethers to the two remaining Novanian vessels. These tethers used experimental technology that had never been tested on such large objects before. They created invisible bonds between the ships, allowing the smaller human vessels to pull the massive alien craft. "All tethers are secure," reported Jack Nelson from the bridge of the Endeavor. "Engineering says we can start at 1/4 power." Captain Rodriguez nodded. "Very well. Signal all ships to begin. Nice and easy." The combined fleet began to move. The human ships strained against the enormous weight of the Novanian vessels. The engines glowed bright blue as they pushed to their limits. For a tense hour, it seemed they might not have enough power. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the alien ships began to pick up speed. "It's working," Jack said with relief. "We're on our way home." But the journey would be far from simple. With the loss of the Starseeker, the remaining Novanian ships were dangerously overcrowded. The life support systems were never designed to handle so many people in such damaged conditions. Susan Wright spent most of her time on the Eternal Dawn, working with the Novanians to repair damaged systems and distribute resources. She had learned enough of their language to communicate without the translator for simple things. This earned her respect among the aliens, who made great efforts to learn human ways in return. Susan found an unexpected friend in Ilara, the young Novanian engineer who had escaped the Starseeker with Peter Russell. Ilara had lost her family aboard that ship, but threw herself into work rather than giving in to grief. "Your people risked everything for strangers," Ilara said one day as they repaired an air filtration system together. "Many humans died saving us." "Why?" Susan thought about this as she adjusted a valve. "I think it's because we understand what it means to be alone," she finally answered. 100 years ago, we thought we were the only intelligent life in the universe. We know how it feels to face extinction. During our own troubles, we learned that survival isn't just about being strong. It's about helping each other." Ilara made the three-fingered gesture that Susan now knew meant agreement and respect. Meanwhile, tensions were rising back on Earth. News of the rescue mission had spread worldwide, causing both support and fear. Some communities organized supply drives and built temporary housing for the refugees. Others protested, demanding the aliens be kept away from Earth. They feared disease, resource competition, or cultural contamination. Latest update from Earth Command, Lisa Green reported to Captain Rodriguez. "The protests are growing louder. Some countries are threatening to close their borders if we bring the Novanians into Earth orbit." Rodriguez frowned. "Our mission hasn't changed. We're bringing these people to safety, regardless of politics." Admiral Kemp supported this position. From Earth. "The United Earth Space Command made a promise," he stated firmly in a public address. "We will honor that promise, whatever opposition we face." But the opposition wasn't the only challenge. 2 months into the journey home, a critical oxygen recycler failed on the Eternal Dawn. The system that converted carbon dioxide back into breathable air began to shut down. Without it, thousands of Novanians would suffocate within days. Dr. Nancy Carter worked frantically with the Novanian medical teams to prepare for mass casualties. Peter Russell led a team of engineers trying to repair the system, but the damage was too severe. The parts they needed didn't exist on any of their ships. "We need to think differently," said Greg Adams, a quiet engineer who rarely spoke in meetings. "We can't fix their system with their parts. But what if we build a hybrid system using parts from our ships?" The plan was dangerous. It would require taking critical components from the human vessels, leaving them vulnerable if other emergencies arose. It might not work at all, but they had no other choice. "Do it," Rodriguez ordered after hearing the plan. "Strip whatever we need from the non-essential systems on our ships." For 3 days, human and Novanian engineers worked non-stop, building a system that had never existed before, a combination of both species' technologies. They took air scrubbers from human shuttles, power couplings from the Novanian emergency systems, and coolant pipes from the Endeavor's backup life support. Susan and Alara worked side by side, neither sleeping for more than a few hours at a time. When they finally connected the last component, the entire room fell silent, waiting to see if it would work. The hybrid system hummed to life. Readings on both human and Novanian monitors showed oxygen levels slowly rising throughout the ship. A cheer went up from the exhausted crews. That night, First Speaker Valoran addressed the combined crews. "Today we have learned that different does not mean incompatible. Our technologies, like our peoples, can work together to create something new and powerful. This gives me hope for our shared future." The fleet continued its slow journey toward Earth. Resources grew scarcer with each passing week. Food supplies were carefully rationed. Water was recycled again and again. Power was diverted to essential systems only. Despite these hardships, the Novanians showed remarkable resilience. They shared stories and songs with the human crews. They taught lessons about the stars they had visited in their long journey. They held ceremonies to honor both human and Novanian lives lost during the rescue. Susan attended one such ceremony with Alara. The Novanians gathered in the largest open space on the eternal dawn, holding small crystals that glowed with soft, blue light. They sang in voices that seemed to vibrate on multiple frequencies at once, creating complex harmonies that made Susan's skin tingle. "They're singing the names of the dead," Alara explained softly, "so their souls will find their way to the eternal stars." When they added the names of the human crew members who had died during the rescue, Susan felt tears on her cheeks. Different species, same emotions: grief, gratitude, hope. 4 months after leaving the rendezvous point, the fleet reached the orbit of Neptune. They were back in familiar territory now. Supply ships from Earth came out to meet them, bringing fresh food, medicine, and replacement parts. But as they approached Earth, the political situation became more complicated. The UESC maintained that they would complete their mission, but where the Novanians would be settled remained uncertain. The debate had divided Earth in a way nothing had for decades. Susan looked out a viewport toward the distant blue dot that was home. "Do you think they'll welcome you?" she asked Alara. The Novanian made a gesture Susan had learned meant uncertainty. "I hope so. We have nowhere else to go." As Earth grew larger in their viewports, humanity faced its greatest test. Would they embrace their new neighbors, or reject them out of fear? 5 months after first contact, the combined fleet reached Earth orbit. The blue planet looked impossibly beautiful after their long journey through the emptiness of space. Medical ships rushed out to meet them, taking the most critical Novanian patients to special facilities built in Antarctica. The remote location offered isolation from human population centers, while still being accessible for treatment. News broadcasts showed the massive alien ships hanging in orbit beside the much smaller human vessels. For most people on Earth, this was their first glimpse of the beings their rescue mission had saved. The arrival polarized Earth society even further. Some cities held celebrations, welcoming the Novanians with messages of peace projected into the night sky. Other regions sealed their borders and demanded the aliens be settled elsewhere in the solar system. Captain Rodriguez, now promoted to admiral for his leadership during the mission, stood before the United Nations in Geneva. His uniform was crisp, but his face showed the strain of the past months. "The Novanians aren't asking for our land or our resources," he said firmly. "They're asking for a chance to rebuild their civilization in the empty spaces we haven't claimed. The moons of Jupiter, the rings of Saturn, places where humans might visit but could never live comfortably." He paused, looking at the assembled leaders. "They offer knowledge that could help us, medical technology that could cure diseases, engineering expertise that could solve our energy problems. But even if they offered nothing, we help them because that's who we are, or at least, that's who we want to be." The debate continued for weeks. Scientists studied the Novanian biology to ensure they carried no dangerous diseases. Security experts reviewed the technical specifications of their ships. Diplomats worked to establish the first human-alien treaty. On the lunar base where many Novanians were temporarily housed, Susan Wright continued working with Alara. The young alien engineer had been appointed as a cultural liaison between the species. "Your people seem divided about us," Alara said as they watched a news broadcast showing both pro-alien celebrations and anti-alien protests. "We're often divided," Susan admitted. "It's part of being human. But in the end, I believe we'll make the right choice." The decision to grant the Novanian settlement rights came down to the first worldwide vote in human history. Every citizen of Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies had the chance to vote yes or no on what the media called the Novanian question. The day of the vote, Susan and Alara watched the results come in from the observation lounge on Lunar Base Alpha. The numbers climbed slowly on both sides. "It's so close," Susan said nervously. "I thought it would be more clearly in your favor after everything that happened." "Fear is powerful," Alara replied. "We understand this. Our own people debated whether to contact you at all." The final tally appeared on screens across the solar system. By a margin of just under 4%, humanity had voted to welcome their new neighbors. Admiral Kemp stood beside the newly appointed Earth ambassador to the Novanians, Lisa Green, formerly the communications officer on the Endeavour. Together they signed the first interspecies treaty in human history, allowing the Novanians to establish settlements on Callisto and several other moons in the outer system. 1 year after the first distress signal reached listening post Epsilon, Susan attended the groundbreaking ceremony for Nova Haven, the first Novanian settlement on Callisto. The icy moon of Jupiter would be a harsh home, but the Novanians had experience with difficult environments. Their advanced technology, combined with human engineering, had already begun transforming the surface. Dr. Nancy Carter was there too, heading the new Interspecies Medical Research Center. Peter Russell had stayed on as chief engineer for the settlement construction. Many of the original rescue team had chosen to remain with the Novanians, building something new together. Olivia Ward had come all the way from listening post Epsilon for the ceremony. As the person who had first detected the alien signal, she held a place of honor among both humans and Novanians. "Does it feel strange?" Susan asked her. "Seeing how far this has come from that first signal you detected?" Olivia smiled. "Every day. But in a good way." The ceremony was simple but meaningful. First speaker Valoran planted a small crystal in the Callisto soil, a tradition from their home world symbolizing new beginnings. Human representatives added water from Earth's oceans, connecting the two worlds across the vast distance of space. The mixed crowd of humans and Novanians watched. Small lights began to glow within the crystal, spreading outward into the surrounding ground. It was beautiful and alien, a perfect symbol of what they were building together. After the ceremony, Susan found Alara standing at the edge of the construction site, looking out at the stark landscape of Callisto with Jupiter hanging enormous in the sky above. "Why did you answer our call?" Alara asked quietly. "Your people risked everything for strangers." Susan thought carefully before answering. "Because we recognized ourselves in you," she said finally. "A century ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves through war and environmental damage. We know what it means to face extinction, She gestured to the construction where humans and Novanians worked side by side. We learned that survival isn't just about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about being willing to reach out when someone else is falling. Ilara made the gesture of agreement and respect. Then we hope to learn this wisdom from you, as you will learn other things from us. As twilight fell on Callisto, work continued on the foundation of Nova Haven. Human and Novanian engineers made adjustments to the environmental domes that would protect the settlement from the harsh conditions outside. Medical teams prepared hybrid facilities that could treat both species. Scientists from both worlds shared knowledge that had developed along entirely different paths. Admiral Rodriguez watched from the temporary command center. He had given up a prestigious position on Earth to oversee the joint settlement project. When asked why, he gave the same answer he had given when first accepting the rescue mission. Because it's the right thing to do. Far away at the edge of the solar system, listening post Epsilon continued its silent watch. Its sensors swept the darkness between stars, listening for other voices that might someday call for help or offer friendship. And Earth, once alone in the universe, had opened its arms to the first of what many hoped would be many peaceful encounters among the stars. The rescue of the Novanian fleet wasn't just the story of a single mission. It was the beginning of humanity's true journey into the wider universe.